We're going to have a discussion based on Tanya, based on Chassidus. What is the approach that we as Yidden are supposed to have with the war, the atrocities, the pogrom, and everything that happened and is happening in Eretz Yisrael. So it's been a very difficult week, obviously, for Klal Yisrael collectively, for all of us individually. Where's Sasan, by the way? He's here. And I want to divide the conversation today, the discussion that we're going to have, into two parts. One part I want to talk a little about our emotional reaction, how we're supposed to feel about what's going on, and what's a proper emotional response from a perspective of Torah, perspective of Chassidus. And then I want to talk a little also about what's our practical response. What's our practical response to what's going on? So, for most of us, we received news about what happened. We received news on Shmini Atzeres. So Shmini Atzeres is Mansum Chasenu. You know, every single Yom Tov we say Mi'adim L'Simcha. And then, of all the Mi'adim L'Simcha, there's only one Yom Tov which we say is Zman Simcha Seinu, even though that Pesach and Shavuos also are times of Simcha. But Sukkot especially, and as we know that the Simcha of Sukkot, the Simcha of Zman Simcha Seinu reaches its climax on Simchas Torah. Also because it's Sason's anniversary, but also...
only 50 years.
This year is 50 years.
With the same beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Inside out.
Well,
He got married in Eretz Yisrael on Simchas Torah, which is Simchas Torah over here. In other words, yeah. And right away, left many in a dilemma. So what do we do? What do we do? There's a kafes to dance. And it's not only what do we do, but how am I supposed to feel? How am I supposed to emotionally react to the situation? So, the first point that I want to talk about is I once heard a great line. I don't remember from who. I just don't remember who I heard it from, or maybe I read it somewhere. Is that as Yidden, we're supposed to be not thermometers, but thermostats. What is the difference between a thermometer and a thermostat? A thermometer, you put it into the room, and it tells you what the temperature is. A thermostat, you put it into the room, and it decides what the temperature is going to be. A thermometer just reacts to the situation. Here's the situation. It's hot in the room. Okay, so therefore, I'm going to have a reading that's high. Oh, it's cold in the room? The reading will be low. A thermostat doesn't care what the temperature is in the room because it knows what the temperature is supposed to be, and it makes sure that the room arrives at that temperature. And the same thing is also as Yidden, and I'm not talking only about Ma'aseh B'Peil, I'm talking about in terms of feelings. There's one way of looking at life is that I'm a thermometer. So I stick my thermometer, into any given situation, and I react naturally to that situation. So if it's a painful situation, I'm in pain. If it's a festive, happy situation, I'm happy. But think about that. Does Yiddishkeit really recognize that? When it says, Mishenichnas Adar Marben Besimcha, it doesn't say, when the other comes in, and if you're at a wedding, be happy. When the other comes in, and if there's happy things going on, be happy. No, Mishenichnas Adar says, Marben Besimcha, which means that you have to be the thermostat. You have to raise the simcha temperature in the room. And by the way, the same thing is the other way around. Mishinichnas Av Maitin Besimcha. When Av comes along, so then we reduce the thermostat. Reduce it. And what if someone says, but 1 second, it's in the summer, it's gorgeous outside, and it's beautiful, and I just had a baby, and I got a promotion. So how can I be able, how are you telling me Maitin Besimcha? Comes along Torah and says that, yeah, I'm trying to tell you how to feel. There's a Torah-dik way to feel in a given situation, and our avodah is to control our emotions that it should be in conformance with Torah to the degree possible. We say v'yahavtas Hashem elikecha. The first thing we say is b'chol levavecha. What does that mean? The Eibishter, I give you my heart. I love you, Eibishter, to the point. Just like b'chol levavecha, with all your heart. B'chol nafshecha. What does b'chol nafshecha mean? That even if we have to give the Eibishter our life, which unfortunately there are many who did that in this past week. B'chol meidecha, Eibishter, if I have to give you all my money. But the first thing is b'chol levavecha, Eibishter, I give you my heart. I give you my heart, and that, which means that I'm going to work on myself to feel the way that you want me to feel. And this is actually brought on in halacha, and it's actually halacha with regards to battle, to war. When the Yidden go into war, as Yidden are going into war right now, the Eibishter should protect and safeguard all the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, everywhere, and they should succeed in their mission and deliver a devastating blow and defeat on the enemy. We should have an amazing victory very, very quickly. Amen. So before the Yidden go out to war, so what happens? So there's a kohen that gets up and he tells the Yidden, what does he tell them? Al tiru, val tachpasu, val tartzu, right? Don't be scared. Imagine that. Imagine the people are going out to war, and what is the kohen saying? Don't be scared. What do you mean, don't be scared? I'm scared.
It's normal.
And the Rambam says that this is actually a halacha. It's a mitzvah leisasa in the Torah. You're not allowed to be scared when you go out to battle. This is what the Rambam says in halacha. That when you go out to battle, you're not allowed to be scared. I am feeling, as Yidden, again, a tzaddik is someone who perfects this, and mamish, every single one of their emotions is in sync with the way the Torah wants it to be. But the rest of us don't have the excuse to say, well, I just feel that way. No, you feel that way. Okay, but certain feelings are valid, certain feelings aren't valid. The Torah tells us, don't hate don't hate another Yid. But I hate him. He's an awful person. What do you mean tell me not to hate him? I do hate him. That's my feeling that I have. Torah says no. You have to work in it not to. You have to love another Yid. Go tell me to love another Yid. The guy's a nudge. The guy's annoying. I have to love him? Yes, you have to love him. But it's my feeling, yes. But and we get there, we'll talk about this a little more later, but this idea of moyach shalt al alev, that the mind controls the heart, and we can use our mind to actually control our feelings. In Tafshin Lamed, in 1970, there were a bunch of Chassidim who came to the Rebbe for Yud Shvat. That was the 20th anniversary of the Rebbe accepting, of the Rebbe being Rebbe, the yard site of the Friedrich Rebbe. It was also a very big event then. They made a Siyam Sefer Torah for the Sefer Torah for Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu, a Sefer Torah which the Friedrich Rebbe started writing. The point is, a lot of Chassidim also came in from Eretz Yisrael. This is 1970. 1970 was a big deal. Coming in wasn't like today when people just hop onto a transatlantic flight at Wish. You were there by that Farbrengen. You shouldn't admit to being that old. I thought you were 30. What?
What month was it?
Shvat. The Rebbe made a Farbrengen. Afterwards, they made a Farbrengen, like a farewell Farbrengen. And Farbrengen was going on a little longer than the Chassidim thought, and they have a flight to catch to Israel. And the Rebbe sees that there are a lot of Chassidim that are
looking at the watch.
Looking at their watch. So the Rebbe stopped and the Rebbe said a story. The Rebbe said that this was in the 1920s, and he was in the city of Leningrad. And today today is called St. Petersburg, which was called back then, and then with the revolution, it became Leningrad, and then the name reverted, right? And that night, that evening, the Friedrich Rebbe was traveling to Moscow. Now, at that point in time, the Frierdiker Rebbe was the one who was the most active in the entire Soviet Union in spreading Torah and Yiddishkeit. And he was a wanted person, and he was being watched, and everything he did. At that point, the KGB had already lost patience with him. Eventually, we know that the Frierdiker Rebbe was arrested, sentenced to death, although that was commuted, that death sentence. And if everything was dangerous for the Frierdiker Rebbe, most specifically, when traveling to Moscow, because they knew he's not traveling to Moscow because he wants to see the nice buildings over there. He wants to see the Kremlin. The Frierdiker Rebbe is traveling to Moscow, it's for the purposes of Hachazakas HaTorah, right? Of building up Torah institutions. And they were watching the Frierdiker Rebbe, very nerve-wracking. The Rebbe says it was within the hour before the train was supposed to leave, the train from Leningrad to Moscow, and the Rebbe walks into the room of his Frierdiker Rebbe, of his father-in-law, and sees the Frierdiker's father-in-law sitting calmly and involved in whatever he was involved in. The Rebbe didn't say what it was. Maybe he was learning, maybe he was whatever he was doing, but it was as if he didn't have a worry in the world. And the Rebbe says, I know that there's the concept of Meir Shalt al Alev. I know there's a concept of the mind controlling the heart, but ad kedei kach, to this extent. So the Rebbe says, I couldn't hold myself back. And I told my father-in-law, I said, ad kedei kach, to this extent. So the Frierdiker Rebbe told the Rebbe that he heard in the name of his grandfather, the Rebbe Marash. The Rashba was an incredibly busy person. And in general, his day was divided. He had 3 different things they did every single day. Number 1, he wrote many tshuvas. He would write tshuvas, halachic responses to people from all over the world, many of which we have, many of which we don't have. He was also a doctor. And also every day he was makbid to take a walk. And that's in addition, obviously, to his own learning, davening learning. The Rashba, Reb Shlomo ben Aderet, right? And when the Rashba was asked, how do you manage to get everything in? The answer, he said, the answer is, I have hatzlacha bisman. What have hatzlacha in time? What does that mean? What does that mean? Skid on you. What does it mean, hatzlacha bisman? Is that whatever I'm doing, I'm completely engrossed in what I'm doing, and I'm not thinking about anything else at that moment. And that's the way to succeed. You can accomplish many, many things. Usually the reason why we get overwhelmed is because when you're doing one thing, you're thinking about other things. He says, I have hatzlacha bisman. That's what the Frierdiker Rebbe responded. And that obviously requires a tremendous meir shata alev, the idea of controlling feelings, controlling emotions. And that's our avodah. There's another story that comes to mind, is that the Alter Rebbe had a chassid, his name is Rabbi Meisels. This Rabbi Meisels, he was one of the leading personalities, one of the leading askanim in the city of Vilna, until he decided to become a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, at which point he was ejected, expelled from his different positions. In fact, he had to leave Vilna, but he was a very, very, very wise person, very knowledgeable person, and also he knew many languages. And just a trivial trivia, by the Rebbe's Chasana, by our Rebbe's Chasana in 1928, the Frierdiker Rebbe, he gave out a shura to everyone there. He gave out a memento, a present. And what was it? It was a copy of a ksav yad, of a letter from the Alter Rebbe. So today we get copies of Kisyav. You realize what it meant then. To make a copy, there were no copy machines then. It was a copy of a letter handwritten by the Alter Rebbe. And who was the letter to? The letter was to this, the letter that Alter Rebbe wrote to this Rabbi Meisels. Some also interesting, although it's a little off topic, but maybe not. What is the content of this letter? What does Alter Rebbe write to Rabbi Meisels? There was a machlokes going on, and the Alter Rebbe told Rabbi Meisel to stay away as far as he can from this machlokes. He says, because most of the tzaras that we have in Galus come from the machlokes l'shem shamayim that we have. L'shem shamayim, as he says. In other words, we're all involved in it's l'shem shamayim. Most of our problems in Galus are from the machlokes and that we have l'shem shamayim. Anyways, but back to Rabbi Meisels. As we know, when Napoleon, when he invaded Russia, this is in 1812. So we know that the different gedolim of that time were divided in terms of who they wanted to win the war. And the Alter Rebbe decided, for reasons that are beyond the parameters of what we're going to talk about today, he sided with the Tsar against Napoleon. And Rabbi Meisels, actually, he acted as a spy on behalf of the Russian army, because he understood French. and he was fluent in French. He acted as a spy, and he befriended in the city where he was, which was occupied by the French. He befriended the various Russian French. And the story is told that he actually even met Napoleon on more than one occasion. And one time Napoleon suspected him that he was a spy. So Napoleon comes into the room and he screams at him, "You're a spy!" And then right away, I guess Napoleon went and he felt his heart. He wanted to feel if his heart was thumping. I guess this was before lie detector tests were in style. That was, and when he felt that Moshe Maisel's heart wasn't thumping, so okay, that's it. He let him go. And Moshe Maisel said afterwards that he credits this to Moich Shalt Alev, the mind being able to control the heart. Now, I never really understood the story very well, because even if I wasn't a spy, if Napoleon would accuse me of being spied, my heart would be thumping anyways. Yeah. But come on, this is the story. This is the story. The point remains. The point remains is that our avodah, and this is a huge idea in Chabad, and Chassidus, is that it's not only that it's not only about our behavior, but we're actually trying to refine ourselves and work that our midas also, that our emotions, our feelings also are compatible with the Eibishter. And perhaps no more is this apparent when we have a difficult situation, when we have a tragedy. So the first example is mamish what all of us experienced this week, which is that we got the news and it's Yom Tov. And we know on Yom Tov there is no Avelos. And we know on Yom Tov not only is there no Avelos, but there's a mitzvah to be b'simcha, v'samachta b'chagacha. And this is Simchas Torah, and we have to go with the hakafas, and we have to dance, and we have to be happy. And there are some people who are like, but what do you mean? I'm not happy. I'm a thermometer. So I'm not happy because I'm gauging the situation, and it's not a happy situation. And nevertheless, what does Torah tell us? V'samachta b'chagacha. That we have to be b'simcha. And it's not only about that. There are many other natural feelings that people have in such a situation. And we need to know what feelings are valid according to Torah, and what feelings according to Torah aren't valid. And when we say they're not valid, even though they're natural, and therefore no one is blaming you for having those feelings, because you're not a tzaddik yet. But at the same time, we have to recognize, yes, I have these feelings, but they're not valid according to the Torah, and therefore I'm supposed to be working and doing my avodah to move away from these feelings. So one of the feelings, which I've had discussions with a few people about this week, because the Bashkacha Prates this week, in the Tanya, the Chitas, the Tanya of the week, the Alter Rebbe talks about anger. And the idea of Kol HaKoyes Ki'ilu Oived Avodah Zarah, Siman Chafei in Igeres HaKodesh, which we learned a little while ago. I don't know, maybe we learned it sometime last year, maybe early last year. And the Alter Rebbe talks about how anger is not only to say it's not a valid emotion would be an understatement. That anger is tantamount. So, as some of you know, I have a Tanya podcast. So every single day there are a few thousand people who are listening to my Tanya, and some of them contacted me and they said, yes, Paris also. Paris didn't contact me this week. Reuven, how do you listen to my Tanya? You don't have a smartphone?
I don't have.
Right, okay. He's one of the Kedoshim over here. I don't mean the Kedoshim like I'm talking about yeah, and Sasa.
Sometimes I listen, my wife.
Good.
I listen.
By the way, if you want, for those who don't have smartphones, and Tavi Aleichem Bracha, there's actually, there's a hotline in Williamsburg. You can call a number and you can listen to Tanya every day if you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Your Tanya?
Yeah. Yeah.
You have the phone number?
After class, I'll give it to you. What? Yeah. So people contact me. What do you mean you can't be angry? What do you mean you can't be angry when I don't even want to repeat, but we all know what happened. We all know the shreklicha, the atrocities, the horrific nature of the brutality of the attacks against Klal Yisrael. And attack which the world hasn't seen since the Holocaust, literally. In 75 years, we haven't seen anything of the sort. Baruch Hashem, the Eibishter should still help in weiter. But what does the Alter Rebbe say in Tanya? The Alter Rebbe says that we have to realize that the Eibishter controls the world, and the Eibishter controls everything. And if something bad happens to a person, even though we know that the person who did it is a Baal Bechira. And therefore that person made the evil choice to do what they did. And therefore that person is held liable, and that person has to be punished, and that person will be punished, whether in this world or whether in the next world, whether both. But that's the cheshbon that person makes. That's that person's cheshbon. From my perspective, the fact that something happened to me, it only happened because the Eibishter predetermined that, because if the Eibishter hadn't decided that it should happen, it wouldn't have happened. Because no one can hurt me unless the Eibishter decided. In the words of Dr. Rabbi, Al HaNizik Kvar Nigzar Min HaShamayim. That on the Nizik, the victim, that was already Nigzar on the victim to be. So who are you angry at? Who are you angry at? Anger implies this shouldn't have happened. As Yidden, that's not our reaction. Yidden don't get angry. When Aaron's two sons, we don't get angry, and we don't question the Eibishter. Vayidom Aaron. Aaron didn't have any questions. Aaron suffered this most horrific tragedy of his two sons dying, and the day which was meant to be the pinnacle of his career, pinnacle, the day that he is what's the word? Nominated, not nominated. The day he's inaugurated, he becomes the Kohen Gadol, and on that day, his two sons, who were tremendous tzaddikim, not the Avil, they both die. Vayidom Aaron. And instead, what do we say? Tzaddik Hashem b'chol terachav, right? What do we say in Eicha? Tzaddiku Hashem, right? The Eibishter is always right. And the Eibishter is always good, and the Eibishter is always kind. And when we're by Elavai, we say Tziduk Adin.
So why does it say that we are not held accountable for what we say when we're in pain?
And other mitzvahs b'shas tzareh. Let me finish, and we'll get there. Yeah. And right when a person, what's the first thing we say when we hear bad news? We say Baruch Dainamas. Baruch Dainamas. Yidden, we don't have questions. We accept. We have emunah, and we know that everything the Eibishter does, everything the Eibishter does is for the good. And if we feel otherwise, then it is our avodah. We try to align our feelings to thinking the thoughts that we're supposed to, along with Torah values. Now, yeah, there is acknowledgement. There's definitely acknowledgement of the fact that this is difficult, and we don't always accomplish it fully. And what you said is an expression of that. Ein adam nitfas b'shas tzareh. But it doesn't mean, Torah doesn't say, oh, in a time of pain, feel free to say whatever you want. It doesn't say that, right? Yeah. It's very careful. Ein adam nitfas means you can't blame a person. Can't blame a person. That doesn't mean that that's the ideal behavior. You have there's certain halachas, even in terms of davening Kriya Shema, that you're putter because if you're in a state of tsar, right? Torah does make allowances. Sometimes we realize it's very difficult, but the fact that it's difficult, and even the fact that we won't arrive at perfection, doesn't mean that we shouldn't be working on it and striving to sync our emotions with the way Torah wants us to have our emotions.
Always you have to make.
Yeah. So we're not angry because we are mekabel be'ava. We are mekabel yisurim be'ava. We realize, and we have emunah. We have emunah, absolute emunah. And we know that when Moshe Rabbeinu, when he said Lama hariyei salam hazah, when he turns to Eibishter and said, the Eibishter, why did you do something bad to this people? He was punished for that, and the Eibishter chastised him. And the Eibishter tells him, Chaval al da'avdim le mishtakin, I missed the obvious. They never asked. They never questioned me. They never questioned what I do. This is even Moshe Rabbeinu. So if anger isn't allowed, what emotions are allowed? What emotions are kosher? What emotions are Torah sanctioned emotions in a time such as this? So first of all, I'll start with this, not because it's the most important emotion to have, but just to soften the blow that I'm saying a little. One emotion that is totally valid to feel is hatred. Hatred towards the evil, hatred towards the evil people who did it. As David HaMelech says, Tachlis sina senesim la'ivim hayuli, and an absolute conviction to destroy them wherever they are until
How do you mute?
What?
How do you mute?
Yeah. No, just give them.
Oh, sorry.
Mute.
An absolute conviction to destroy this evil. And you know, Baruch Hashem, that the politicians in Eretz Yisrael, they're saying the right thing right now. And what actually happens remains to be seen, because it's not, and by the way, it's easy for me and you to sit over here in a nice, cozy little shul in Brooklyn and to decide what has to be done. Politicians, obviously, it's not easy, it's a big nisayon, but hopefully they have the strength to do what has to be done, which is to completely smash and destroy the enemy, and with a hatred, an absolute hatred. That's a valid emotion. Hatred because these people are evil, they chose to be evil, they chose to do evil. This has nothing to do with the fact that it's not saying it shouldn't have happened. Together with Allah nigzar kvar nizak man hashamayim, right? Together with understanding whatever happened to us, for whatever reason, had to happen. But these people are evil, and evil we hate, and we will destroy them. Zachar eitz asher asa lacha amalek is a mitzvah. That hatred is a mitzvah, and timcha, zecher, amalek is also a mitzvah. So that's an emotion which is absolutely a tzedek emotion. So I know we're talking, it's a little, the lines are subtle sometimes. Anger, no, kalakais kilo eved aveda zara. Anger is aveda zara, because anger implies something happened to me which shouldn't have happened to me, and we accept as yidden that al nigzar kvar nigzar. Hatred is allowed. Another emotion that's not only allowed but is appropriate is sadness, is grief, pain. When another yid is suffering, it hurts, and it's supposed to hurt, and it's supposed to hurt. Gefarlach. And once again, that's not a stira, that's not a contradiction to not being angry. It's not a stira, a contradiction to our amunah on the Eibishter. It's not a contradiction to the fact that we believe it's Tzaddik Hashem b'chol derachav, that the Eibishter, everything the Eibishter does is right. Because at the end of the day, if when Yidden are in pain, and in incredible pain, we're also in pain. Now, an example that I've given in the past, I believe, imagine a father or mother, they have a kid, the kid is sick, and therefore a life-threatening illness, and the kid has to undergo a painful operation. And imagine the kid is in pain, and the mother turns to the kid and says, or the father turns to the kid and says, "Hey, stop the kvetching. It's good for you. The operation is good. So it's painful, but do you realize it's good for you?" It's good, but it hurts. And if it hurts the child,
Hurts the mother.
it hurts the mother, it hurts the father. So it's not a stira. Something can be good and it hurts anyways. We believe whatever the Eibishter does, we believe that whatever the Eibishter does is good, but it hurts. And if it doesn't hurt, then something's missing in our Ahavas Yisrael. What other feelings are we supposed to have? So we mentioned emunah, that we already mentioned, which is also a feeling. But then there's bitachon. These are all again feelings that if we don't have, we're working on them. We're trying to get these feelings. Again, we know here are the feelings I shouldn't be having. Here are the feelings I should be having. Bitachon is trust in the Eibishter. Whatever happened, happened. But from here on, we have bitachon that the Eibishter. Tamid Eini Hashem Elokecha ba mereish hashana v'dachar shana. The Eibishter is going to protect Eretz Yisrael. He's going to protect the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, every single one of them. There's going to be a victory, an incredible victory. We have that bitachon. That's another feeling that Yidden have. Another feeling we have, and we always have to have, is simcha. Ivdu es Hashem besimcha. And a Yid is always serving the Eibishter. Whether you're davening, whether you're learning, whether you're eating, whether you're working, whatever a Yid is doing, it's always part of the Avodas Hashem. And therefore, a Yid has to be besimcha. But we just said that pain and grief.
Grief is also. How could you have both?
That's what it means to be a Yid.
How you do both?
And Tanya, Perik and the Perik Lamed Daled. Tanya, and then the Perik Lamed Daled, Alter Rebbe says, brings down the famous verse from the Zohar, Chedvat tkiya b'liboy mesitrada, and b'chia tkiya b'liboy mesitrada. On one side of my heart, I have happiness wedged, simcha. On the other side, b'chia, I'm crying. It's the opposite.
How do they mix?
Because they're not from the same place. Not from the same place. You can be happy about one thing, and you can be crushed about another thing, and it's at the same time. I'm crushed at the tsar of the Yid in Eretz Yisrael. And nevertheless, I'm a Yid, and I know that the Eibishter loves me. And I know that I'm a Ben Yochid of the Eibishter. I'm an only child of the Eibishter. I know that the Eibishter charged me and gave me Torah and mitzvahs. And they're both. And I feel both of those feelings. Both of those feelings. That's the ability of a Yid. So, can we feel both at the exact same second? Maybe yes, maybe no. But these are two feelings. A Yid has to be b'simcha. We can never allow ourselves to fall into a state of sadness, a state of depression, a state of negative emotions. Even during a time like this, there has to be simcha. So I mentioned in the past that the Rebbe said, "Mishenichnas av b'maitin b'simcha." How do you translate it? When av comes,
You diminish.
you diminish the simcha. Does it say when av comes, you stop being happy? Says, how can that be?
Yeah, a little bit.
How can that be? A Yid can't stop being b'simcha.
Less.
Little less. In other words, the thermostat, you put it down a little.
Oh, I see.
Right? Put the thermostat down a little. But off? How can you turn off the so it's a little less of a focus. Other, you push it up a little. It also doesn't say Mishnich Nas Adar Maschilin L'smoyach. You start being happy. What do you mean? A Yid is always happy. Marbin, you add. In other words, a Yid is always happy. An Adar, you're a little more, and an Av a little less, but a Yid is always happy. There's a letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe where he writes, these are shocking words, but he says that even a Yid who's sitting Shiva, at the same time, there has to be an underlying simcha that you're doing a mitzvah of the Eibishter right now by sitting Shiva. Think about that for a second. What?
There's a type of something. Ani b'simcha. I don't remember.
I don't think I've heard of it. That's so that. Now, besides for the fact that Yid always has to be b'simcha, there's another nekuda, which is that we know the most effective way of averting dinim, of averting heavenly decrees, and making and bringing down barachas from the Eibishter. One of the most effective ways is by being b'simcha. The Zohar, which the Rebbe quoted often, the Zohar says, "Tochazi, take a look and you will see that our disposition below creates Hashem's disposition above." So therefore, when we are b'nehiru da'anpin, when we have a radiant face, when we're shining, when we're aglow, the Eibishter also shines, and the Eibishter is also aglow. So besides for everything, in a time when we need Hashem's Yeshuas, we want to be b'simcha. We want also the Eibishter should be b'simcha. But I was in Michigan for Simchas Torah, and obviously it hit hard there also. My father, Shmini Atzeres in the morning, my father gave a speech at the shul. My father's the Rav over there, the Shliach. And he spoke, he said, we have to be b'simcha. He said, however, simcha, absolutely. Fun, no. All the fun that's associated with Simchas Torah, that this year we're not doing. The Mishigasin, the fun. So now's not a time for fun. But simcha, real simcha, now's a time to even more b'simcha. But the fun, we leave away.
How about drinking? It's okay?
Within measure, if to add to the simcha. But the point is, that there's a deep vart over here, which is that when I'm saying we have to be b'simcha today, it's inappropriate to be wild. It's not a time to, for trivialities or fun. It's a serious time. But serious is not not a contradiction to emes simcha. And simcha is something a Yid always has to be. We know that 50 years ago, so obviously we had Sason's Chasana, and a few days before then we had Yom Kippur War, right? Your Chasana was in the middle of Yom Kippur War.
It's very hot for me.
And the Rebbe spoke about it at the time because then you had also, Yom Kippur was also a tremendous loss of life and tremendous fear. And the Rebbe then spoke also. It's Sukkot now. It's Sukkot, it's Simchas Torah. And this is our Avodah. And this is how we're going to bring the brachas from Hashem. And this is how we're going to bring the Netzachim and the Yeshua. And obviously that's more true when it comes Yom Tov or Shabbos, but also even the Shem B'Simcha is not only in Yom Tov, it's not only in Shabbos, it's a constant state in which a Yid is supposed to be. And obviously, Last but not least, I'm adding this in the area of emotions, feelings, even though that it's tefillah. But we know tefillah, la'avdei b'chol levavchem. What is avodah shebalev? Is tefillah. We have to daven. To daven to Eibishter. Daven with the earnestkeit, daven with all kavanah, and ask and beg and plead and demand of the Eibishter that we want a Yeshua now for all the Yidden, especially those people who are Batsaru Bashivya. And all of this is accomplished, and really this is about Chabad. Because what is Chabad? You know, something we've mentioned in the past, that I guess the concept of Chabad was a little plagiarized by cognitive behavioral therapy. What is cognitive behavioral therapy? Behavioral therapy is you want to change a certain behavior. A certain person has a certain maladaptive behavior. Whether it's a sleeping disorder, a eating disorder, OCD, whatever it may be. Many persons, a phobia, which results in a certain behavior. And behavioral therapy is we're trying to fix the behavior. And there are different types of behavioral therapy. But the most common form of behavioral therapy today is cognitive behavioral therapy. And what is the theory behind cognitive behavioral therapy? Is that underlying every behavior is a feeling. And if the behavior, if you have a maladaptive behavior, that means that there's a maladaptive emotion, feeling. A fear, a phobia, an anxiety, whatever it may be. And the way to deal with the behavior is cognitively. Cognitive behavioral therapy means change your thought patterns, change the way you think. That will change the way you feel. And if you change the way you feel, automatically the behavior will be resolved. And really that is the theory of Chabad. I think maybe we should go sue. Chabad, maybe we should go sue for trademark infringement, I don't know. But this is something that we've been talking about for 250 years. But what is Chabad? Chabad is that yes, we have the ability to actually change our emotions by changing the way we think. If I want to have more emunah, I want to have more betachon, I want to have more simcha, then I need to sit down with myself and take some time and think thoughts that will bring me simcha, think thoughts that will bring me to betachon. It's called hisboinenus. If I'm feeling angry, I need to sit down and I need to think that the Eibishter controls the world. And we use our Chabad to control our emotions. Now this is a lot of work, and it's a work that people don't like to do. I think more people would rather, tell me what to do. Don't tell me what to feel. But ultimately, means that it's not enough that we do the right thing, but we also do the avodah to try to sync our feelings to the extent possible to the way the Eibishter wants. And again, I want to mention one more time that don't expect perfection. A tzaddik reaches perfection in this area. A tzaddik is the person who not only their actions and their behavior is perfect, but also their feelings are perfect. And many of us will never get to that place of perfection. But just because I can't get to that place of perfection doesn't mean that I shouldn't be working on it, number one. But there's something deeper. There's the biggest problem in life is not when we do something wrong, but when we don't have moral clarity, when we don't realize what's right and what's wrong. When, in the words of the Navi, Samim la'er cheshach or l'cheshach er, emrim lamar masik or lamasik mar, right? We think that which is bitter is sweet and sweet is bitter. And we live in a society today, and I believe I've mentioned this in the past, we talked about kol hakoyis kilo eved avodah zara, that anyone who gets angry, it's like avodah zara. And every generation has their avodah zara. Back in the day, the avodah zara was those little gold trinkets that they had. But avodah zaras evolved. Those avodah zaras are mostly gone. And every generation has their avodah zara. And we know in America, everyone says, what's the avodah zara in America is money, right? But I believe that we've even moved past money today. Today we've moved past money. I mean, still avodah zara, trust me, we all, right? Today, one of our big avodah zaras in America is feelings. Feelings. We worship our feelings. And if I have a feeling, it's valid. Don't tell me what to feel. Whatever I feel is valid. Why? Because I feel it, by definition. And that's not a Torah view. No, you can have a feeling it's invalid. It's invalid to be jealous, it's invalid to hate. It's invalid to be angry. We're supposed to work on feelings of simcha. We're supposed to work on feelings of Avos Yisrael and Avos Hashem. I am not there. I'm working on it. At least I know that where I am is not the greatest place. I know where I want to work towards, and I'm working towards that, and that's what I'm trying to do. That is in terms of our emotional response. Realizing that our response, we have to sync our response with the way Torah and Chassidus want us to respond. What do we do? There's a pasuk in Parshas Matais when Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven come to Moshe Rabbeinu. And they say, we want to settle over here in Eivra Yarden, in the East Bank. They want to settle. Because it's Eretz Mikna, we have a lot of cattle. This is a place with a lot of pasture over here. And Moshe's response to the Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, the very first words of his response, he responds with incredulousness. And his words are, says, your brothers are going to go out to battle, and you're going to stay here. Moshe can't wrap his head around that. What does that mean? And we have to realize that all of us, we're in this predicament. Hundreds of thousands of our brothers are going to battle to protect the Am Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, and ultimately they're protecting Kedushas Hashem. They're there to protect the Eibishter's name. And we're sitting here in America. What are we doing? What are we doing? So the first thing we have to know is that that can't be. It can't be that we're sitting over here and we're enjoying our breakfast, lunch, and supper and our daily exercise. And our brothers are doing battle. We also have to do battle. Our days today cannot be the same as it was last week and as it was 2 weeks ago. There's a battle going on. And we're also soldiers. We're not wearing the fatigues. We don't have the rifles. And we're going to do spiritual battle. But we have to realize that we're part of the Milchama. And we have to realize that our brothers in Eretz Yisrael need us. They need us. They need our Hisafa and Torah mitzvahs. We need to learn more Torah. We need to do more mitzvahs, understanding that Torah mitzvahs ultimately are the keli, are the conduit for bringing down brachas from Hashem. And all in general Torah, we know what does the Gemara say, that David sat and learned while Yoav did the Milchama, and the Atzlacha of Yoav in the Milchama was because David sat and learned. Torah is effective, and wherever you are, we're all one body. We're all one. We're one body. And when we do a mitzvah, it's all Klal Yisrael benefits. Everyone. We're adding protection also to everyone, to all our brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael, and our soldiers who are on the front lines. And then there are certain mitzvahs specifically that have a special segula. Obviously, there's giving tzedakah. We should all be giving extra tzedakah these days. Tzedakah, tatzil memavis, right? Tzedakah, tatzil memavis. It's not only them. We give tzedakah, l'schus, the Yidden Eretz Yisrael, giving extra tzedakah. Another big thing is tefillin. We know that a few days before the 6-day war, Peretz, don't tell me you're old enough to remember this. The Rebbe came up with mitzvah tefillin.
Mm-hmm.
What? You were 3, okay. Not Peretz, I meant Benzi, right? Yeah. And the Rebbe says, the Chazal tell us that that all the nations of the world will see that the Eibishter's name is upon you. They will fear you. The Rebbe says that's tefillin. The Chazal say Elu tefillin shebereish. That's the tefillin. And the Rebbe says, get everyone to put on tefillin. And get the soldiers put on tefillin. And in the days, literally a few days before 6-day war, the Rebbe said, get the soldiers put on tefillin, everyone. And that was the launch of Mitzvah Tefillin, which was the first of the tzayim that the Rebbe came out with. I spoke about it again many times. And you see a Yid around, put tefillin on him. Especially these days, Yam Yisrael needs that protection. We need the V'yara Mimeka. We need to have that fear and putting on tefillin on Yid. And then it goes without saying that the biggest keli for Hashem's bracha, more than anything else, is Avos Yisrael. Avos Yisrael and Achdos Yisrael. Now is not a time for squabbles, politics, machlokes, even if it's L'Shem Shamayim, now is the time for Heisafa and Avos Yisrael, Achdas Yisrael, because Le'matzah Kadosh Baruch Hu Keli Masik Bracha Yisrael Ela Hashalom. We know this. You know the famous medrash that says that we know that the soldiers of Achav, they went out and they won their wars and they didn't have any casualties. The soldiers of David, they went out to war, they won the battles, but there were casualties. And the Gemara says why? Because in Achav's time, there were no Del Turin, there were no people Yidden who spoke Lashon Hara about the other Yidden. Who said there were no tattletales. How do we know this? Because the chief of staff of Achav was Evadia Hanavi. And Evadia Hanavi was hiding on his own tab. He was hiding 1,000 Nevi'im. He was hiding. Because Izebel, the princess, wanted to kill all the Nevi'im. The chief of staff of Evadia is hiding 1,000 Nevi'im. And Achav didn't know about this. Izebel, because no one said. There were no Dilturin. No one tattled. And by David HaMelech, Beferish, there are people who said Lashon Hara. And the Eibishter says, when the Yidden are Ba'achdus, even if they're Eivdei Vedas Hara, like in times of Achav, they'll have Hatzlacha. Nothing I can, the Eibishter says, there's nothing I can do about it. You know also about the Dera Mapel, right? Versus Dera Aflaga. When we're together, when we're united, we're the strongest force that there is. Avos Yisrael and Achdas Yisrael. Loving every Yid. And loving every Yid also means when we see a Yid, Kisira Orem V'chisisei. When you see a Yid who's naked, you give him clothing. If he doesn't have physical clothing, you give him physical clothing. If he doesn't have mitzvahs, which is spiritual clothing, we ask the Yid to do a mitzvah. We try to get him to do a mitzvah. There's putting on tefillin, mezuzah, lighting Shabbos candles, inviting them for a Shabbos meal, learning some Torah with them. That's also all part of Avos Yisrael and Achdas Yisrael. So that's what we do. That's how we feel. And since we have just a few minutes left, just something which is on my heart. And I don't know how helpful it is to say it or not to say it, but I'll say it anyways. We're decades and decades into failed policy in Eretz Yisrael. A policy of concessions, a policy is that if we only give them this and that and the other, well, finally we'll have peace.
Appeasement.
We'll disengage from Gaza and everything will be fine. We'll even give them our greenhouses. We'll disengage. Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, he came to the Rebbe. He was by the Rebbe by Yechidus. Many Israeli prime ministers and presidents were by the Rebbe by Yechidus. But he was not by the Rebbe when he was in his term as prime minister, but he came earlier. He was the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. And I believe that it was on the occasion of the Rebbe's 75th birthday, he was sent by the state of Israel and by its president, who was Zalman Shazar, who was a Lubavitcher Chassid, on behalf of Israel to wish the Rebbe happy birthday. So he went to the Rebbe. Now, you had different types of Israeli politicians, even of those who weren't from. Some of them were more Masorati, had a little more of a feeling for Yiddishkeit. And it's not about right wing versus left wing. So, for example, Shimon Peres, even though he was very left wing, but he was more of he definitely had more of a heart for Torah and for Yiddishkeit. What? Yeah. And then Yitzhak Shamir on the right had nothing. Like he was very, very secular. So it doesn't necessarily divide on right or left. You might want to say there's more right wingers one way, more left wing, but it doesn't necessarily divide. Now, and Yitzhak Rabin was a very, very secular, like kibbutz grown and that kind of ideology. He wasn't really interested in going to visit the Rebbe. And obviously, the other say of Menachem Begin, who was very. So he went into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe engaged him in a conversation for like half an hour. He spoke about afterwards how impressed he was and how his memories. And what did the Rebbe speak to him about? The Rebbe spoke to him about Hen Levad. The Rebbe, you're in the UN, a lone representative of Am Yisrael amongst I don't know, 150, 160 nations going, how lonely do you feel? How lonely do you feel? And he spoke about the pasuk, Hin am levadad yishkein, a nation who sits alone. Is it a blessing? Is it a curse? And the Rebbe said it's not a curse, it's a blessing. This is who we are. This is our destiny. We are a nation who's alone. We're never going to be the ones who everyone loves. We're never going to be that one. We have to embrace who we are and respect ourselves. He went back to Israel, and the Rebbe sent, I think, $10,000, if I remember correctly, with a messenger to give it to him, and said, this is for building Eretz Yisrael. And the messenger said to the Rabbi, do you remember the message about Hin Am Levadad Yishkein? And I remember 1993, when he stood at the White House with Arafat Yimach Shemai. And his message was, no longer are we a Am Levadad Yishkein, he said. Yitzhak Rabin said that. We are no longer a nation alone because now we're making friends. Now we're making peace with the Arabs. Now we're making peace with the PLO. Now we're making peace. We're going to leave Gaza, everything will be fine. And looking back historically, we have to know, there was one person who for 50 years, more than that, since 1967, is busy screaming and crying and pleading and saying, concessions are never going to get you anywhere. And the first priority of Eretz Yisrael always has to be not political, but security. And any decision that is made should never be made for political considerations. The ones who decide have to be the security establishment, and the security establishment only. You don't ask a politician whether to make an operation or not. You ask a doctor, and you ask the security apparatus about any decision that you made. And time and again and again and again, that was disregarded. The Rebbe screamed, giving away land, all you're doing is you're giving attacking grounds to these people, and they're going to turn around, they're going to attack you, and now you don't have the space, you don't have the strategic depth to be able to handle that. Because they're right there, they surprise you, you're over. Which we saw in a devastating way. We saw this last week. There's no advance warning. And in the Frum world, by the way, there were many people who didn't understand the Rebbe. Many people. What? Making peace? What's wrong with making peace? It's a good thing. Famously, someone said, we lived 2,000 years without the Golan, we could live another 2,000 years without the Golan. Imagine today we didn't have the Golan, Rahman al-Islam. Imagine if Syria right now was sitting in the Golan. And you had befeiros from parties who were absolutely party to the... And it's hard to blame, because who doesn't want peace? Who doesn't want peace? But in our generation, there's one person, the Nasi Hadair, who saw every... And I find it so incredibly fascinating that the Rebbe, a person of extremes, absolute emunah b'tochen, and you're going to win the war through putting on tefillin and the Eibishter and everything, like this most spiritual, faith-based. And the other side, the most practical person who sees Pashat B'derach HaTeva, where things are going to lead. Like the two extremes, usually the very practical person, don't hack me a chinik about tefillin, right? No, let's get the two extremes, and neither one budges an inch. And it's not too late. It's not too late. I don't know what it's helping me sitting over here talking, but the Rebbe said many times, when the Rebbe spoke about this topic, the Rebbe said, I don't know why I'm saying it, but asatut vei mishreit. When it hurts, you scream. And the Rebbe, why do you scream? Is it going to help you if you scream? It doesn't help, but that's what you do. And the Rebbe said, it's hurting me. The Rebbe was once during the war of attrition. Afterwards, there was a ceasefire. I'm not going to get into all the details. That was between the ceasefire which led up to the Yom Kippur War. After the Milchemet Hadasha ended with a ceasefire. And for 3 years, the Rebbe is screaming and the Rebbe is saying, "You idiots! The ceasefire is nothing more than the Egyptians rearming, and they're going to surprise attack you." And they had this Kav Bar Lev, a line of fortifications. It's going to fall. It's going to collapse. And it's exactly word for word what the Rebbe said happens exactly. And at a certain point, at one Fabreningen, the Rebbe was talking about this, and the Rebbe started crying. And the Rebbe paraphrased the words from that Shabbos, which was the Haftarah. Madua basi vein ish, karasi vein aina. Why? I'm speaking and no one's listening. No one's listening. And I think now more and more people are beginning to listen. More and more people are beginning to listen. And hopefully, the leaders of Klal Yisrael, the Prime Minister, Netanyahu, was someone who actually has a tremendous respect for the Rebbe. He met the Rebbe and he talks about the Rebbe as his inspiration. Finally, he realized, before you make a move, go learn the Sichos. Go see what the guidance over there is specific and it's clear. And we have time to start listening to the tzaddikim, time to start listening to the... And we should do that. In the schus of doing that also, the Eibishter will help again. We have B'tachan, the Eibishter will help. And we'll have a Dida Natzach, we'll have a victory, incredible victory, to the point that we'll wonder, how did this happen? Such an incredible mapala for the terrorists. It should happen by next week. Mir Hashem coming down with Tanya. We should be celebrating the complete victory of Am Yisrael and Klal Yisrael.